Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I didn't know a marriage could end with such polite words. We weren't fighting that Friday night. We were sitting at the dining table with lukewarm tea between us, the house humming with the usual sounds, refrigerator compressor, a neighbor's car door thudding shut, wind tugging at the birch outside. Lena spoke like she was offering me a new fitness app. "I've been thinking," she said, stirring a cup that didn't need stirring. "Maybe we should try something more modern, an open marriage." I blinked like someone had switched the channel mid-scene. She didn't look angry. She looked rehearsed, shoulders squared, chin slightly lifted, eyes soft the way people smile while selling used cars. I asked the question that made everything tilt. "Because of your weekend trips?" Her spoon clinked the mug. "They're just hiking trips," she said lightly. "You know Caleb and I have been friends forever." Caleb, the best friend who called at odd hours with gear questions, the one who sent her playlists and inside jokes that never included me, the one whose laugh rang too long when we all sat together. I had never seen them do anything wrong. Yet the world doesn't need to be on fire for you to smell smoke. She slipped around an invisible line. "We've matured," she said. "People our age aren't supposed to be jealous. We can be honest about what we want." I rubbed my thumb over the rim of my mug until it squeaked. "What do you want?" She held my gaze like a doctor preparing to deliver a diagnosis. "Freedom," she said. "Just a little. The option to explore. No secrets." No secrets. That phrase would boomerang back later, sharp as a blade. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I felt something colder than anger move into my chest and sit down on the couch like it paid rent. I said, "If this is the path you need, I won't chain you to a door." My voice sounded calm because it had to be. Panic never makes good decisions. Calm does. We drafted rules which already felt absurd, like drafting rules for a house fire. "Communication first," she said. "Protection," I added. "No friends," I said. "Define friends," she countered, not smiling. She slipped in a caveat about existing connections, which meant Caleb. My pen paused. She reached for my hand, fingers warm, a ring catching the light. "Trust me," she whispered. "This doesn't change us." The lie hung in the room, invisible, humid. Her weekend trips doubled in sleek precision. She packed light, like someone who had practiced in an empty room. One backpack, one tidy bag of toiletries, a book she never opened at home. She left on Fridays with hugs that landed an inch to the left of my heart and returned on Sundays smelling like pine and a cologne I didn't own. I memorized everything because memory would become my currency. I played along. That's what she asked for. Play. Smile when she mentioned old trails and coffee shops that didn't exist anywhere near those trails. Nod when she described a tiny cabin with no phone service, yet somehow her photos uploaded on time. I asked normal husband questions about weather and food. While inside, another version of me took notes behind glass. The first weekend after our agreement, I started a document titled Maintenance Schedule, which would have been funny if it hadn't been true. Dates, times, call logs, screenshots of no-service text bubbles followed by social posts with mountain sunsets a minute later. A receipt for craft beer in a town 40 miles from the supposed trailhead. I didn't snoop through her phone. I didn't need to. People leak truth without trying. It spills from their timelines, their browsing tabs, their habit of leaving email drafts open while making toast. I placed a tiny camera facing the driveway. Not a secret spy gadget, just the basic doorbell model we already owned that Lena never bothered to learn. I upgraded the plan for cloud storage and told her it came with the internet bundle. She shrugged. I kept everything legal. Everything simple. She wanted an open marriage. I opened my eyes. I met Caleb at a party 2 weeks into this new life. He showed up with a six-pack and a grin, shook my hand too firmly, and asked if I'd tried rock climbing. "You should come sometime," he said, glancing at Lena with familiar ease. She laughed at something he didn't say aloud. I watched the orbit of their bodies, how they faced each other even when they were speaking to other people, how their jokes braided without visible knots. If guilt lived in that room, it wore cologne and a tailored flannel. I asked Caleb about those hiking trips, casual as air. He recited names of trails like a student who had studied just enough to pass. He mixed up which ridge had a lookout and which one had a river crossing. He swore a lot and called everything epic, that loose adjective that makes details blurry. He clapped my shoulder and said, "You're lucky, man. She's one of the real ones." On Sunday night, Lena returned with a sunburn that started and stopped in unfamiliar shapes. I kissed her forehead and brought her a glass of water. "How was it?" I asked, and she told a bright, choreographed story about a thunderstorm that never happened in the forecast. She kicked off her shoes and sank into the couch like a traveler hitting a hotel bed. I tucked a blanket around her legs, nodding, listening, saving. In those weeks, I learned patience, the kind that sits quietly with a book while the kettle takes its time. Real patience sheds ego. It doesn't demand immediate justice, it builds it. I went to work, answered emails, fixed a dripping faucet, took out the recycling, and wrote a working list of names who mattered to her. Her sister Maya, her boss Evie, 2 college friends who still sent holiday cards, our neighbors Sam and Pilar, who hosted barbecues with too much garnish. I didn't isolate myself, I called people, I stayed visible. The difference between a sulker and a strategist is whether anyone notices a change in your routine. She took exactly 5 trips over the next 3 months. Each departure wore a similar outfit, a casual hug, a love you, a half laugh when I said, "Bring me a souvenir," because souvenirs belong to tourists, and she was playing local in another life. Each return produced tiny inconsistencies like pocket lint, a receipt from a bakery she hadn't mentioned, a photo angle that included a hotel lamp, a tan line shaped like a wristband from a place that stamped them. The hotel lamp image became important later. Every piece mattered because a single allegation sounds petty. A collage tells a story on its own. I didn't date anyone. That choice wasn't noble, it was functional. I needed clean hands. I needed my side to look like a countertop you could eat on. Whenever she asked whether I had met anyone interesting, I smiled in a way that could be mistaken for bashful. "Not really," I said, which was true in the way a locked bank vault holds no coins on the sidewalk. One Wednesday, she came home early, buoyant. "Evie loved my pitch," she said, tossing her bag on the chair. "She might have me lead the client conference next quarter." She wrapped her arms around my neck, kissed me lightly, and added, "Caleb says hi, by the way." It was a test. My heartbeat didn't change. "Tell him congrats on discovering a waterfall that only appears on weekends," I said, and she laughed, a tad too loud. She crossed to the kitchen and opened the fridge, hiding her smile behind the door. "You're funny," she said into the shelves. I took pictures, not of her, but of objects that told time. The backpack with a tag from a boutique lodge. The brochure folded into her guidebook. The lined paper where she had listed snacks and accidentally written champagne with a heart dotting the I. I wasn't building a case for court. I was building a performance for an audience that needed to believe they had seen the truth themselves. On a quiet Sunday morning, she sat with her coffee and said, "You've been amazing about this. I didn't know marriage could be this grown." I nodded like a therapist who's practiced face masks judgment. "Good," I said. "Honesty feels better than pretending." I meant every word, just not in the way she thought. Honesty would feel better later too, when it screamed through a room like a clear bell. She began to include best friend in more sentences, probably to normalize it. My best friend recommended that podcast. My best friend says the state park has a new trail. My best friend thinks we should invest in e-bikes. The phrase, "my best friend," turned into a kind of air freshener she sprayed over every conversation. It created the exact effect she didn't intend. It smelled like cover-up. I learned her schedule better than mine. Thursday evening packing, Friday morning departure, Sunday night return. Midweek runs made her phone's health app bloom with congratulations. I set my own routine to harmonize: early gym, late meetings, 2 standing dinners with colleagues who would vouch for my presence without prompting. It sounds paranoid. It was pragmatic. If you want people to believe you at the end, let them watch you being credible the entire time. One Saturday when she was off-grid, a charge hit our card from a bistro with a name too elegant for a trailhead diner. I visited on Sunday afternoon while she showered. The host smiled when I asked whether a couple with those names had dined there. "They're regulars," he said, checking notes. "Corner table. She likes the lemon tart." He offered a satisfied nod as if I had complimented his menu. I thanked him and left, pocket heavier with a business card and a timestamp burned into my skull. My plan evolved without fanfare. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation in a parking lot. I wanted gravity. I wanted the air to drop out of a room so cleanly that nobody questioned where it went. I started planting seeds for a future gathering. Sam and Pilar loved hosting. I suggested a joint anniversary dinner late in the summer. Neighbors, close friends, a handful of family. A shared celebration feels wholesome. It also draws a crowd that believes it's arriving for cake, not truth. People remember surprises better than lectures. While invitations floated through group chats, I visited a notary to certify the date on a set of printed receipts and screenshots. The clerk didn't ask questions. She stamped paper like a drumbeat. I bought an inexpensive projector and a simple screen that could stand in a living room. I told myself I wanted to show a slideshow of summer memories. That wasn't untrue. On a Tuesday evening in June, Lena and I ate pasta while a thunderstorm unfolded across the sky in quiet blue flashes. She reached for my hand. "Are we okay?" she asked, small for the first time since that tea-scented talk in spring. Lightning sketched the birch on the curtain. "We're fine," I said, and I meant it. I was calm. I slept 8 hours that night, solid as a brick in a wall. She took her 5th trip 2 weekends later. I watched her walk to the car from the upstairs window, the camera's soft ring lighting the driveway like a theater aisle. She adjusted her strap, glanced at her phone, and smiled toward the street as a gray SUV rolled up. Caleb stepped out, lifted her bag with a gallant flourish, and kissed her cheek. The kind of quick kiss friends tell themselves means nothing. The camera captured it, the cloud saved it. I didn't exhale until the SUV turned the corner and vanished. By then, my own weekends had become rehearsals. I checked the equipment, tested the projector, organized files into folders labeled with bland names. I practiced keeping my face level while pictures slid across the wall. I poured seltzer into a glass and watched the bubbles surge and fall, timing how long it took them to settle. You learn strange measures when you're planning a moment that will rearrange a life. Lena returned Sunday evening with a fabric bracelet on her wrist, the kind resorts use. She slid it down, hiding it under her watch. "They did a fundraiser at the lodge," she said brightly, "for trail maintenance." I smiled. "Nice," I said. "I love when people take care of the path." At work on Monday, I scheduled the anniversary dinner with Sam and Pilar for a Saturday night in late July. "We'll do fairy lights in the backyard," Pilar said. "String them like a canopy." I offered to bring a dessert and a surprise. "Is it a song?" Sam asked, eyes gleaming. "I could get my guitar." "No song," I said. "More like a home movie." He clapped. "Perfect." "Lena bought a new dress for the dinner," she said, holding it up against her frame. "Deep green, elegant, the kind that photographs beautifully." I told her she looked stunning. It wasn't a lie. On the Tuesday before the dinner, I called Maya. We'd always had an easy rapport, the sibling-in-law friendship built on car rides and dishwashing at holidays. "Can you come Saturday?" I asked. "I think it's important." Something in my voice made her pause, then say yes in a careful tone, the way you say yes to a doctor's follow-up appointment you didn't expect. Friday night, Lena hugged me in the kitchen. "I'm excited," she said. "It's been a long time since we did a big night with everyone." She brushed a thumb along my jaw like she was smoothing paper. "Thank you for being who you are." I held her for a beat longer than usual, smelling her shampoo, hearing the hum of the refrigerator, feeling the house breathe. "You're welcome," I said. By Saturday afternoon, the backyard looked like a summer postcard. Lanterns swung faintly in the breeze. Laughter floated across the fence as neighbors tested the speakers with a playlist of golden oldies and modern hits that didn't frighten anyone. Lena twirled once in her dress. People arrived with handshakes and hugs and bottles of things with ribbons. Caleb showed up 20 minutes after start time, carrying a cheese board like an apology. He gave me a smile full of teeth and said, "Dude, this looks amazing." I thanked him and moved aside so he could walk into the light he didn't know was arranged for him. When the sun softened and the first round of toasts clinked under the fairy canopy, Pilar dimmed the patio lights. I cleared my throat, lifted my glass, and said a short, warm thing about friendship and seasons and gratitude. I sounded like a man whose garden just reached bloom. People awed politely. Lena's hand found my sleeve. "You're sweet," she whispered. I nodded toward the back door. "Before dessert," I said, "I have a small film to share, just highlights from this year." The crowd murmured in approval. Maya, standing near the snack table, watched me with a stillness that made the entire yard feel sharper around the edges. Sam killed the deck lights entirely. The house, now dark behind us, waited like a stage before curtain. I led everyone inside, laughter drifting in a cheerful current. Chairs scraped, glasses settled. The projector beeped softly, ready. A white rectangle appeared on the wall. Lena squeezed my hand, smiling at our friends, glowing the way people glow when they believe their life is the narrative everyone admires. I pressed play. The room went silent the instant the first photo appeared on the wall. Lena's smile, bright, genuine, careless, lit up the projection. She was standing by a lake, sun in her hair, sunglasses pushed up, hand clasped around someone's wrist. The someone wasn't fully visible yet, just a familiar sleeve, a gray plaid pattern that appeared again in the next image. And the next. Caleb's sleeve. The crowd laughed lightly at first, thinking it was part of the highlight reel. The laughter evaporated when the next slide showed them sitting close, heads tilted toward each other, not in a scandalous way, but in the kind of way that reveals intimacy too natural to fake. My narration, calm and even, filled the air. These were taken during Lena's weekend hikes, I said. She's a lover of nature and apparently of photography. A ripple moved through the group. Maya's eyes narrowed. Caleb froze mid-breath. Then the video played. Driveway footage, time-stamped. Lena walking out with her bag. Caleb pulling up, the quick kiss on the cheek before they left. Gasps. Someone's glass clinked on the table. Lena stood, her face pale under the patio lights. "What is this?" she asked, voice trembling between outrage and fear. "Just memories," I said softly. "You told me we needed to be honest, that we'd have no secrets. So, I wanted everyone to see what honesty looked like." "Turn it off," she snapped, but my finger was already moving the next image forward. Receipts, text screenshots, matching timestamps, a small collage of lies stacked neatly on truth. Every item, every word, every no-service message followed by a social media post from a cafe window glowed across the wall. Pilar whispered something to Sam, who looked like he'd bitten glass. Maya stared at her sister, heartbreak written on her face. The silence between each click grew heavier. Finally, I stopped the slideshow. Lena tried to speak, then stopped. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again like someone drowning quietly in shallow water. "You? Why would you do this?" she managed. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." "I didn't humiliate you," I said evenly. "You did. I just brought the audience you never expected." The words didn't come from anger. They came from completion. There's a difference. Caleb muttered something about misunderstanding, but nobody listened. The evidence had spoken. He rubbed his temple, avoiding her eyes, and quietly set down the cheese board he'd brought as an offering to a party that had turned into Judgment Day. I stepped toward the table, raised my glass, and said, "To honesty, may we never confuse it with convenience." I drank. It wasn't bitter. It tasted like freedom. Then I placed the glass down, took the small box I'd hidden under the projector, and set it on the table in front of her. Inside lay her wedding ring. She'd stopped wearing it on trips, saying it felt tight. I'd found it once in her gym bag pocket weeks earlier. I'd cleaned it, polished it, and kept it for this moment. "It's yours," I said. "You wanted freedom. I'm giving it back to you." She stared at it like it might burn her fingers. Nobody moved. Outside, a cicada started up, loud and unbothered. Maya stood slowly. "Lena," she began, voice full of disbelief. "You told me you were working weekends." "I was," Lena whispered weakly. It's complicated." "No," Maya said, cutting her off, her expression hardening. "It's not." Caleb took a step back toward the door, muttering about needing air. Someone followed him, probably to make sure he didn't vanish with the wine bottle. Lena reached out a hand toward me. "We can talk about this, please. We can fix—" I shook my head gently. "No, Lena. You already dismantled it piece by piece. I just swept up the debris. She started to cry. Not loud, not cinematic, just the quiet kind that makes the air thicken. I didn't feel triumph. Revenge rarely tastes like what you imagine. It's colder, more surgical. The satisfaction doesn't come from her tears. It comes from the truth sitting bare, undeniable between us. I never wanted to hurt you, she said through broken breaths. I know, I said. You just didn't care if you did. The crowd stayed frozen, unsure if they should leave or witness the rest. I made it easy for them. Thank you all for coming, I said with a polite smile. Dessert's still in the kitchen if anyone's hungry. I'm heading out. And that was it. I walked out through the back door, through the glowing strands of fairy lights we'd hung together that morning. Behind me, voices began to murmur, chairs scraped, someone turned off the projector. The screen went blank, but the images remained, burned into every pair of eyes that had seen. Them. I got into my car, started the engine, and didn't look back. The air outside was heavy with the scent of cut grass and summer dusk. My phone buzzed. One message from an unknown number. You didn't have to do that. No name, no need for one. I deleted it without reading again. The drive was silent except for the hum of tires on asphalt. Every mile felt like erasing chalk from a blackboard, slow, deliberate, satisfying in its quiet. I checked into a modest hotel an hour away, unpacked a single bag, and sat by the window watching the lights of the small town flicker on. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, but clean, like someone who had finally finished a long, painful surgery. In the days that followed, the story spread, not because I told it, but because witnesses always do. Did you hear what happened at the dinner? She had no idea. He played it so calm. My name became a ghost in small conversations. I ignored it. Truth doesn't need a publicist. Lena tried reaching out. Emails, calls, one handwritten letter slipped under the door of my old office. I never replied. I wasn't cruel. I was done. A month later, I saw a post on social media. Her account, private before, now public. A photo of a mountain trail with the caption, "Learning to walk alone." Comments flooded in with hearts and encouragement. I didn't feel anger, just distance. Like reading the final page of a book you once loved but no longer recognized. I sold the house, moved into a smaller place near the coast, and started fresh. Sometimes, when the sea wind rattles the windows, I think of that night. Not with regret, but with a strange gratitude. Because she taught me that love without honesty is just performance, and revenge without rage can still be justice. One evening, I ran into Pilar at a cafe. She gave a cautious smile. "You look peaceful," she said. "I am," I replied. "Peace looks better on me than pain ever did." She hesitated. "People still talk about that night." "Let them," I said. "It's their story now. Mine's finished." When she left, I sat for a long while, the sound of waves echoing faintly from somewhere beyond the windows. I thought about all the quiet choices that had led me there. The restraint, the patience, the decision to let truth speak instead of shouting. Revenge hadn't been an explosion, it had been revelation. And in the end, it wasn't about watching her life collapse. It was about walking away free, with my dignity intact and my peace reclaimed. I paid the bill, stepped outside, and felt the evening air brush against my face. Somewhere in the distance, a storm gathered over the horizon, low and far away. I smiled, not because of what I'd done, but because it was finally behind me. I didn't need to win, I only needed to be free, and that was enough.